right. What a pleasure we have now on the PHLY Eagles podcast. We are joined by the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro. Now, my friend Zach here cares a lot about manners. Governor Josh, what should we call you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are stuck calling me governor or gov, but Josh is, great.
I think
too.
governor. Let's appropriately level set the power dynamic here. We appreciate you being with us, and we know that obviously Sunday was a big game. You were there in attendance. We appreciate that you do not make you do not hide that you are an Eagles fan. You're not trying to ride the fence here. So as you went to that game and you soaked in the atmosphere, were you Governor Shapiro, or were you, Josh from Elkins Park? How did you experience that?
Well, first off, my name when I call into sports radio is Josh from Juniata, just so you know. So, but yes, it was a little hard to just kind of be a regular fan. I was getting pulled in a lot of different directions, but getting pulled in those different directions by Birds fans was just awesome. I mean, the environment was amazing. Out in the parking lots, with the tailgating, I got to do Eagles pregame live, which was a ton of fun. And then just being in the stadium. And I got to say, even the Steelers fans, Steelers fans travel really well. It was a great environment. And I thought Birds fans were pretty respectful to the Steelers fans, unlike if, Dallas were in town or something like that. But it was a ton of fun. And it was just great to be there. And I also thought it was a great win for the Birds. It answered a few questions that Jalen had been kind of nagging at Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. I thought this was probably the most physical team we've played all season, and certainly the most physical team we're going to play in these final 3 games of the season. But this is playoff football. This is smash mouth football, and you got to be ready for that. And I think that was exciting. And I thought it was a great win.
So what's that tailgate scene, the tailgate scene like when you're the governor of Pennsylvania? You grew up in this area. I'm sure you've experienced tailgates before. How is it different? And what's the conversation like in the parking lots before that game?
I mean, look, it's totally cool. I was kind of mobbed by folks, which was really nice. And just having folks actually give a damn about who their governor is, the work that we're doing at the state, that's pretty cool. It's pretty special. But I must say we probably spent, 2% of the time talking about the work I'm doing as governor and 98% of the time talking about the game, which is what I prefer. And it was just great. It was just really exciting to see the look on folks' faces when I showed up at their tailgate and to be able to just interact with them as Josh from Juniata.
So you talked about, the changes that the Eagles had to make in this game. And I'm thinking about the Eagles passing game. Tell me how ham-fisted you think this metaphor is. I'm thinking about a football team as a working highway. So you've got the defense, which is humming on one side. You got the running game in one of the lanes, which is working pretty well. But there's like a crater in the passing game, and you got to fix it as everything else is working on. How difficult would that be to do in theory?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, fixing an airplane while you're flying it, right? I mean, by the way, that's governing. We're constantly trying to fix problems while running others. Look, I think to some extent, the chatter about the passing game going into that game against the Steelers was kind of overblown, to be honest with you. And I think that, Jalen Hurts is absolutely capable of, having a big game, with his arm. He showed that against the Steelers. I think he'll continue to do that. And we got to remember, we've got the best running back in the league, maybe the MVP of the league. We got to make sure he's getting his touches. I think what oftentimes gets ignored is the fact that we got the best offensive line in the league as well. And that is something we've got to be, continuing to just tweak and focus on and make sure those guys have everything they need. They are really, really special. I was actually with Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson
Big
and
flex.
One of the former guys on the offensive line. Jason Kelsey this morning, we were giving out toys in South Philly to students, which was really awesome. But those guys are special and they need to be protected as well. So look, every part of this team is important. Every part is humming along now in a good way. And remember, we're 3 games away from a single elimination tournament, and we just got to do everything in our power to make sure every piece of the puzzle, every piece of the machinery is operating at full steam ahead and strength. And I think they are.
Well, I wonder what your perspective is on, the A.J. Brown calling it out sort of, and the importance of having difficult conversations. I imagine that must be something that you have to do often.
Yeah, I mean, look, I always wish, no offense, guys, I wish the conversations wouldn't have taken place in the media, right? That said, it did light a fire under their asses, and they came out, and I thought in the first quarter they were aggressive. Remember, this Birds team's been playing from behind a lot. We're not scoring a lot of points in the first quarter. You cannot play from behind in the playoffs and do well, on a continual basis. You've got to be playing with a lead. And so I actually thought the aggressiveness that they came out with in the first quarter was really, really helpful, or really, really impactful, I should say. And showing that this passing game can work, both to AJ Brown and to Smitty, making sure that he got the touches he needed. So I'm feeling really good about these guys right now.
You mentioned Saquon Barkley. I know in your line of work, approval rating is a big deal often. It's hard to get a bigger approval rating in the state of Pennsylvania than MVP candidate for the Eagles, who grew up in Lehigh Valley, who went to Penn State and was a star
You
there.
think he's got a better approval rating than I do, guys?
That was my lead into the question. Yeah. What perspective do you have on Saquon Barkley, and are you willing to concede that he might be the most popular Pennsylvanian right now?
Hell yes. Look, Saquon is obviously having a career season. And another example of just how stupid the Giants are that they gave him up. And I'm so grateful that we got him back. I think what folks I think don't always appreciate, maybe they just don't know, is, I mean, he is Pennsylvania through and through. Grew up in the Valley, was an all-time great at Penn State. In fact, when I saw him the other day, we were talking about Penn State football in the big game on Saturday. I just think he's a special guy. He's a special guy on and off the field. He's clearly locked in. He's healthy, knock on wood. He's healthy, which is really important. And I'm just feeling really, really good about him as we go into the playoffs. You're going to have these stretches of the game where you just need to control the ball for 5, 6, 7 minutes at a time and just grind ahead, 4 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards each time. Saquon Barkley's great. I would also say don't sleep on Kenny Gainwell. I thought he had a really good game, and that's important for him to have that confidence as well.
You sound like someone who has maybe had a conversation with Nick Sirianni before, because that is his favorite player. They sort of joke with him about that. But I am curious, having encountered as many different leadership styles as you have, what is your take on the Nick Sirianni experience?
Yeah, it's hard for me to judge from the outside, right? I'm not in the locker room, but I tend to look at leaders in any field, business, politics, sports, you name it, media. I tend to look at leaders when they are facing adversity and see how they bounce back from that. I mean, let's go back 10 weeks, whatever it's been, when we were 2-2, right? And a lot of folks were calling for Sirianni's head. And they were saying, get him out of here. And they were saying, remember, he gave up play calling, and is he really doing anything? What, can this guy really coach? And I don't pretend to have a ton of insight into what's happening in that locker room with him, but it is clear that he faced adversity and figured out how to turn it around, figured out how to motivate his coaching staff, figured out how to motivate his players and get them rolling in the right direction. And so I admire that. Any leader who faces adversity and is able to come through it and come out stronger, I really do admire that. And it's clear that that's what he's doing.
I'm curious from a big picture perspective with sports. A smart person in politics once told me that sports is one of the few things that really brings us together. How do you see that? How do you see it in whether it's across the state of Pennsylvania, whether it's with different constituencies, the connective thread of sports?
Yeah. Zach, you're totally right. And I don't want to be political in any way here, but I think it is clear I'm stating a fact that our politics are pretty divisive right now. Right? I think if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, you feel that way. And I think you also probably feel, some division with your neighbors and a sense of cynicism at times. And I work every day to try and bring people together and find common ground. But I also work every day to find areas where we can have conversations or engage with one another where it's not as divisive. I think that there are a few things where you can bring people together and actually talk to someone who you might disagree with on politics or governing. Sports is number one. I think music and art and the outdoors are other things as well. Those are things that I value and I spend a lot of time doing. My wife and I are the first lady of Pennsylvania. started a lecture series at the governor's residence, where we are privileged to live as your governor and first lady. And we do a lecture series roughly every quarter, and we focus on one of those topics, right? Something in history or sports, music, art. We invite all kinds of different people from the community together for reception and to hear a lecture or hear a presentation. And it's incredible. You get Republicans and Democrats, people from rural communities, urban communities, all coming together. Why do I raise this? Because the last lecture series we had, give or take a month ago, we had Jay Wright speak to us about leadership, about the way in which, his career trajectory went. And we use sports as a way to bring people together. Now, not everybody there was a Villanova fan or a Hoops fan or even knew a lot about the sport, but it was a way to engage people in different ways. I actually find that there's a lot more that unites us than divides us, but our politics and in some parts of our media are set up in a way to pull us apart. So I like to use sports, outdoors, music, things like that to bring people together. And when you bring people together, it's easier to solve problems.
Now, to circle it back to you as an Eagles fan, like you when you're watching a game, are you like a rabid Eagles fan? And what gets you more excited? A long touchdown pass, a long Saquon Barkley run, or are you like a defense first guy? You want to see this defense hit people, and this defense does hit people.
Yeah, I guess all the above, but I'm more going to cheer for the offense, but not necessarily the one deep play. But
you like the sustained
old
excellence.
Yes, the kind of old West Coast offense, right? Drop back, get the ball out to 2.5 seconds, 6-8 yards. The screen pass where everybody hits the right block and you get a 25-yard run after the catch. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. Just good, solid football where you control the ball for a significant part of the game and obviously put more points on the board than the other team. That's what I love. And I'll tell you, as cool as it is to go to the game, especially that Eagles-Steelers game, to me, there is nothing better than being in my sweatpants with my kids on the couch, yelling at the TV and just enjoying the company of my family.
That is the one thing we don't get to do because we're working on game days, and so we have some jealousy about that.
Right.
Well, we thank you so much for taking the time, Governor. I have one final thing. Well, two parts. I would be remiss.
Sure.
One, completely unrelated. How often do you get "Hello, Governor" on a daily basis? and then two.
Just yesterday, somebody did it.
I would be. That was for Zach. For the people, for the listeners among us who are entering 2025 feeling maybe a little bit politically nihilist, what is your advice for those of us looking for something, a positive way to channel that?
Yeah. I mean, look, obviously, first and foremost here in Pennsylvania, I'm going to be out there protecting your interests, your rights, and ensuring that you don't get left behind, left out, or harmed in any way. But I know that a lot of people feel that they're trying to figure out what do they do with these emotions, these feelings, these sentiments that they have. And I would argue that you should just do something in your community, something around you that engages you with your neighbors and that makes some positive change in your area. I was talking about the outdoors. I was walking on a trail the other day with my wife, something we love to do and get out. And someone came over to me and kind of asked me a similar question. And I said, what are you passionate about? And they were particularly passionate about this sort of development in their community that they were working on. And I said, well, then get involved in that. Organize your neighbors. See to it that some change happens in your community. And then what happens is, A, you accomplish that task that's really important to you in your neighborhood. But B, you feel a little bit more in control of what's happening around you. And so I would just urge people to be involved in their community, continue to lift up their voices, and do something constructive. I know some people love to pick these things up and just post a bunch of stuff and make noise, but that oftentimes doesn't accomplish something. Get in the game and do something concrete where you're making an impact in your community. And that's going to make you feel like you've got some real agency and some real power in an environment where you feel a little bit uneasy right now.
Well, we thank you so much for that advice. Thank you so much for taking the time. And we will note that there is precedent for a Pennsylvania governor to be part of an Eagles post-game show. So if you're not too busy on Sundays and you want to join Vinny Curry, the invitation is open.
Man, I would love it. I got to do pregame live on Sunday sitting next to Jaws. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I grew up watching Jaws. So any opportunity I get to talk about sports in any format, I'd love to do it. So maybe we'll hook up on Sunday. We also need to spend some time talking about the Sixers and where we go from here with them, and and some other stuff. So I'm happy to talk about any.
You didn't have to bring us down. We were
I know.
so high.
I'm a huge Sixers fan, and I'm just I'm just very, very frustrated right now.
Now you do speak like a real fan, so I think the people can appreciate that. Thank you so much, Governor. Hopefully we will talk to you again.
We appreciate it.
Look forward to seeing you guys soon. Thanks for having me on.
We all silly like the mayor.